Well, hey everyone, welcome to this special video episode of the Gospel Mobilization Podcast. I'm Dave Jacob, the Chief Servant Officer here at Gospel Mobilization, and we are creating these new kind of solo video episodes where it's just you and me, and we're sitting down for coffee and having a discussion. So grateful that you are here today. These video episodes are a little more personable, they're laid back, and they're going to be kind of fun at times. And so drop us a comment, let us know what you think, and just thanks for joining me today. This episode is brought to you by Gospel Mobilization Consulting. And so if your mission agency or you as a mobilizer, if you want one-on-one personal mobilization coaching or training or consulting, there's a lot of ways that we can work together with you as a mobilizer or your agency as a whole. Maybe you're a new mobilization director and need some coaching in how to run the mobilization department and lead the staff, and what kind of strategies should you focus on. Or maybe you've just hired a new mobilizer and you really want someone to come alongside them and get them started on the right foot. We also do evaluation and assessment for mobilization department. So if you're interested in one-on-one consulting, you can contact me, Dave J, at gospelmobilization.org. We help mobilizers just like you. We've worked with MAF and SIM USA and Christar and Global Outreach International, just to name a few of the organizations that we've already worked for. So lots of different ways that you can partner with Gospel Mobilization Consulting. So go ahead and drop me a note, davej at gospelmobilization.org. Well, grab some coffee. This is my Papa Bear mug, one of my favorite mugs that I use just about every week. I have a few different favorite ones. Drinking some good coffee today, so grab some coffee, or maybe if you're not a coffee drinker, that's all right. Grab some tea. Let's just sit down and have a great conversation, all right? Little fun fact for you today. The music at the beginning of the show was created, written, and performed by one of my sons when he was in high school, maybe college, I think high school. And so that is the intro and outro music that we've used on this podcast since 2019, I think. So we've been podcasting a while, and it's just so great to have you guys with us today. Today we're going to be talking about recruiting versus mobilization, and it's a fundamental philosophical foundation of how we go about recruiting and sending new missionaries, okay? And so we are going to dive into this because I experience this a lot in agencies that I'm working with, not quite really understanding the difference between recruitment and mobilizing, and where should we kind of put our focus. And so we're going to start out with defining our terms. Recruitment, according to Merriam-Webster, is to seek to enroll, all right? So you are, as a recruiter, maybe that's the name of your department, recruitment, right? And maybe your title is a missions recruiter, something like that. And so recruiting is trying to get something, or somebody, I should say, to do something. You're trying to convince someone that they should join, in this case, your organization, right? So it is very organization-centric, and it's really, the goal is to bring in new missionaries, which is good. We all want that, right? We all want new missionaries. We all want to send more missionaries. So just hang with me here. We're just defining the terms, but recruitment is really numbers driven. And so that's how we then define, say, the success of our efforts, the success of our work. Are we doing a good job? Well, let's say we had, we wanted 10 new missionary units this quarter, and we got 11, for example. So yay, awesome, we were successful, and that's great. But then if only 8 or 9 come in, then you didn't hit the goal, right? So that's a little bit of recruitment. And we'll unpack this as we go on. Mobilization, however, is defined differently. This is how I define it. You can define it differently and if you want to. So long as you do, please define it so that when you are talking with colleagues about mobilizing, you're all on the same page, which is really, really important. You don't want your supervisor or someone that serves under you thinking of something else as you're having a conversation about mobilization, right? So here's how we define it at Gospel Mobilization. It is inspiring and activating God's people into their specific and important role in the Great Commission. Now, we should have a whole episode of kind of unpacking that definition right there because it assumes some things, right? And the first main thing that it assumes is that every believer has a specific and important role in the Great Commission. They could be the missionary that goes long term. They could spend their vacation taking short-term trips to the same place every year. That's an important role too, right? Or they might be someone who funds missions, and they're a businessman or businesswoman, and they're bringing in significant finances to help fuel missionary sending. We would all agree that's an important role in the Great Commission, isn't it? Okay, so when we talk about mobilization, though, it's not organization-centric. It's disciple-centric, and really it's big K kingdom-minded. So it is focused on the potential goer that you're talking to. And so the question in our minds when we're talking about recruitment versus mobilization, recruitment would be, how can I get this person to come with my agency, right? Or how can I convince this person they should go with our church, go through our church, for example. Mobilization says this, and asks yourself this as you're having the conversation. What is God doing in this person's life? And how can I, as a mobilizer, help them get there? What can I do to help them take their next step? You see the difference in the foundation, the philosophy, and really the motive? We want Holy Spirit driven mobilization. And so we encourage agencies. Don't use the word recruitment. Oftentimes when a young Gen Zer, for example, would hear that term, they know that you're trying to get them to do something. And it can kind of feel like, well, I don't know if I really trust you if you're a recruiter, because I know you're going to try to convince me to come with your organization. So, if possible, don't name your department the recruitment department or I'm a missions recruiter, just because it can bring up some potential barriers that you don't need, right? So instead, you can use the word mobilizer or the mobilization department or the coaching department. I'm a missions coach, for example. That's another good word where it kind of in your mind you're coming alongside someone and walking with them, right? Helping them to discern. So, the problem, though, when we're talking about recruitment versus mobilization is, well, then how do we determine if we are being successful in mobilization? If recruitment focuses on the numbers, then how do we know if we're being successful and doing a good job in the mobilization department? And that's a really, really good question. And so what we have developed at Gospel Mobilization is something we call the Mobilization Continuum. Maybe you've seen this on our website. It is a free PDF for you to download. And so we're going to just unpack this a little bit today to help us understand mobilization and how we can celebrate the mobilization successes that we see in our particular ministry. So we'll put the link to the Mobilization Continuum. Might be helpful for you to have this in front of you, but maybe if you're driving or something like that, don't have it in front of you, right? Keep your eyes on the road and just listen in. But on the left side of the Mobilization Continuum, are those that are not yet mobilized into their specific and important role in the Great Commission. Okay, so we kind of number these 1 through 10, right? So on the left side, you have number 1, then number 2, then number 3, and it kind of, as you move to the right of this continuum, the commitment to and involvement in missions increases, all right? So a number 1 would say, I don't really know what missions is, right? They can't really define it, or maybe they define missions as everything that the church does. Maybe they equate missions with outreach or evangelism. And so we want you to have this continuum in mind as you're engaging with individuals, to kind of see where they are and help them to take that next step, to go from a 1 to a 2 or a 3 to a 5 maybe, right? And so it's not scientific, but it's a good gauge. So a number 2 would be, I wonder if missions is colonialism. That's a big question in a lot of especially young people's minds. And so they're a little turned off by that term missions. And so they don't want to have anything to do with that. And understandable, because, that has happened, unfortunately, in missions history. So a number 3 would be, I'm not sure why I should even care about missions. That, a number 4 could be, well, missions is only for missionaries. I might, just pray for them once in a while, something like that. So you can kind of see on this scale that the commitment to and the understanding of missions is increasing. So we might get to, say, number 5, which is, I have questions about missions. Or a number 6, a person who's number 6 on the scale, I don't know enough about missions, and they're wanting to learn, right? And so once we get to like a 7 and an 8, they're a lot more invested in missions. So they're giving financially, or maybe they've gone on a short-term trip before, and so they're really starting to catch on, right? So all the way to number 10, which number 10 would be, hey, send me tomorrow, or like, I know what my role is in the Great Commission, and maybe I'm a prayer warrior. I've got a friend who he has a photo album, but it's full of missionary prayer cards. And this guy, his name's Brian, and his role in the Great Commission, this is one of them, but this seems like his main one. He flips that page every morning, lays his hands on those prayer cards, and prays for those missionaries. What an amazing ministry. We need more prayer warriors like that, don't we? And so Brian would be like a number 10. He's like, I know the role I'm supposed to play in world missions. And of course, God could lead him in another direction, but he's committed. He understands his purpose in this, and is actively participating, right? So when we talk about what is success then in mobilization, because it's hard to gauge, there aren't the numbers, shall we say, like when we're kind of focused on recruitment, like I mentioned earlier. So we're, we have a goal to send 7, and we sent 7. So yay, we made our goal. We were successful. But when you're talking mobilization, it's a lot harder because you can't see it unless you use the mobilization continuum. Then you can see somebody and say, I have a lot of questions about missions, and you can see them maybe move from, say, a 3 to a 4, right? And so once they go from, well, isn't missions just colonialism, to, hey, I wonder if I should go on a short-term trip. When you see that shift, that's mobilization success. That's what we should celebrate. And so having a place, whether it's a Google Drive or whatever, where you're keeping track of these as you're having conversations with individuals about missions, regardless of where they are in the continuum, and you see this movement, you see God working in their lives. That's what we want to celebrate. That's what we want to be. To be success in missions mobilization, because it really is helping them and discipling them to the nations. This is a phrase we're starting to use because mobilization is looking more and more like discipleship than it has been looking like recruitment. Okay? And again, we're not saying recruitment is bad. At some point, there has to be some, hey, this is what our agency offers, and if this can help you, we want to onboard you. We want to recruit you to the agency. I would suggest using the word onboarding. It's a little less threatening than the word recruiting. So we're not saying necessarily the concept is bad, but I am saying if you use that word, it could turn some young people off. Just know that it can. And we don't want to put any barriers in somebody's path. And so it's really important that we understand, especially the younger generations and how they think about missions. And this is what Gen Z, what I'm sharing with you today is what Gen Z is telling us and what we see in the younger generations. They don't want to be recruited. They do want to be discipled. And so we disciple them to missions. Here's a good question. Did Jesus recruit or did he mobilize? What do you think? Or did he do both? Let's look at a couple scriptures here. I'm looking at my other screen over here. Matthew 4:10. Come follow me, Jesus said, and I will send you out to fish for people. We're going to unpack that in a minute. Mark 3:14 through 15. He appointed 12 that they might be with him and that he might send them out to preach and to have authority to drive out demons. One more verse, John 20:21. You may know it well. Again, Jesus said, peace be with you. As the Father has sent me, I am sending you. And I understand I've picked out just a few scriptures here, but I do want you to see a concept that Jesus didn't recruit missionaries. He recruited followers. He discipled missionaries. You see the distinction? Come follow me, Jesus said in Matthew 4:10. Come follow me. That's recruitment. That's recruitment. As a rabbi, he's recruiting them, which, by the way, rabbis never recruited. It was well below the dignity of a rabbi to go out and recruit somebody. Potential disciples always approached the rabbi, said, can I follow you? Can I follow you? Can I follow you? Not Jesus. He went to these 12 guys, right? And he said, come follow me. He recruited them. There's a whole sermon in there for sure. Then he said, I will send you out to fish for people. So there's recruitment and there's mobilizing right there in Matthew 4:10. In Mark, he appointed these 12 that they might be with him and that he might send them out. So this theme, especially in John, of abiding and going, these aren't two distinct. You don't abide and then stop abiding and go. They're not sequential like that, right? They're simultaneous. You abide and go at the same time. So Jesus developed, think of it as develop or disciple. When I was the director of mobilization for a mission agency, we kind of had these 3 Ds that we really was the foundation of our department. Everything we did in mobilization was either discover, disciple, or deploy. Discover, disciple, deploy. And so there's no recruitment in there, right? Of course, recruitment happens. But listen, if you want young people to trust you, then you've got to be for them and what God is doing in their lives. So they're not going to go with your agency if they think that you're trying to convince them to come with you. So you discover new people, and of course you discover new things. We're always learning, right? We're always learning, trying to improve and trying to gain wisdom. So you're discovering new people. That's part of the mobilization process. Or you're discipling them, right? That's getting them ready, maybe spiritually, and having these conversations. and then you're deploying them, all of those logistics of what it takes to get them to the field. And so maybe that's helpful for you, that you could frame your department or think about everything I do as a mobilizer is either, in these categories of discover, disciple, deploy. So Jesus didn't recruit people to go. He didn't recruit missionaries. He recruited followers, and then he discipled them to the nations. And if you study and what actually occurred after the book of Acts, it is amazing what the disciples did. 11 of the 12 disciples went to a different country. 11 of the 12 went to a different country. Only James stayed in Jerusalem and financed all of the other disciples that went, as far away as Thomas to India, right? And as far away as France, maybe Spain. And so they spread the gospel and spread the kingdom. So really important that we make these two distinctions about recruitment and mobilization. And I hope you hear my heart. We're not necessarily saying, recruitment, bad. Mobilization, good. But there are some components where a young person might have a little reservation if they're talking to a recruiter. And you don't want them to have that reservation, right? And so in your conversations, we do this whole workshop. It's called Coffee Conversations with Gen Z, where we help mobilizers have better missions conversations with the younger generations. And we can certainly put a link to that if you're interested in doing that within your own agency, or sometimes we'll host one of those workshops in a city and invite everybody to come. But you can certainly email me if you're interested in talking more about this. But here's the thing: when you're talking to a young person, ask yourself, am I only telling this person the good things about our particular organization? Which is understandable, and you should share the good things about your organization. Also, we should be sharing some of the weaknesses of our organization. Let me explain, because some of you just went, what? No, don't tell them the bad things, right? Listen, when you tell a young person something like, hey, here's what our agency is really good at, our fundraising coaches, man, they are top notch. You're gonna have somebody walk with you in the fundraising process. I'm just giving an example here, right? And so we do this really, really well. But let me tell you, sometimes our system, so our application process is a little bit old and clunky, and there's a lot to it, and we realize that, and we're working to streamline that. And actually, I would love your opinion. If you go through our application process, maybe you could give me some feedback on how we could improve that, because we know that it's not the best and we're working to improve it. Okay, so what that says to a young person is, wow, this person isn't trying to convince me. They're obviously concerned about what God is doing in me and wanting the best for my life. I can tell that they're not just trying to tell me all the good things about their agency. They're not trying to convince me I should come with them. They know the weaknesses of their agency. Listen, we all have them, right? So the young person says, wow, I think I can trust this person because they're being open and honest, authentic, transparent, vulnerable with me right now. And to remember the number one thing that Gen Z values, authenticity. So if you really want to recruit a young person, mobilize them, disciple them, be for them. But when you focus only on all the numbers, and listen, I get it. I work with some mission agencies that, to be honest, they're struggling. And they've got very, very few new applicants. And so it's like all hands on deck, recruit. But it often backfires because Gen Z won't trust you if they sense, and they can sense, that you are trying to convince them to do something. So instead, shift the entire culture of your missions agency to, hey, what's God doing in this young person's life, and how can we help these people get there, even if it's not with our agency. So for example, I had a young lady when I was a director of mobilization. Her name was Jessica. She emailed me. She said, hey, I'm really interested in being a missionary pilot, and can I talk to you about the opportunities that you have? Well, we didn't send missionary pilots. So I'm getting ready to type the email back and say, oh, sorry, Jessica, we don't send missionary pilots. Good luck. Hope you be praying for you. Wait a minute. I could still have a conversation with Jessica to help her navigate what God's doing in her life. Okay, delete. All right. Hey, Jessica. Wow, that sounds amazing. I can't wait to hear what God is doing in your life and how you've gotten to this point of feeling called to be a missionary pilot. I do want you to know that right now, our agency doesn't send missionary pilots, but I would still love to have a conversation with you. If there's any way that I can help you accomplish that goal, I do know some people in some agencies that do send pilots, and so maybe I could put you in touch with them. Would you be open to a conversation? Now, what's our ROI on that, right? Listen, we are kingdom big K people, and God honors when we put his kingdom first above our own small K kingdoms, above our own organization. God honors that. So I was able to talk with Jessica, and I gave her a couple different agencies that I knew of that were sending missionary pilots. Last time I knew, she was in the process with an agency to go. And so I've lost touch with her, unfortunately, but hopefully she's out there somewhere flying the gospel into perhaps some of the most remote places on the planet, right? And wow, I got to play maybe a little small, teeny tiny part in helping her get there, okay? God honors that big K kingdom thinking. So the best way to recruit somebody to your organization is to focus on mobilizing them. What's God doing in your life? And so as you're having this conversation with a young person, and this is what we teach in this Coffee Conversations workshop with about having better missions conversations with Gen Z, we talk about you're listening 70% of the time, and you're only talking 30% of the time. So you're asking a lot of questions, and you're discerning, you're praying during that conversation. What's God doing in this young person's life? And so maybe one of these episodes will dig a little bit deeper into how we can have better conversations with young people. But honestly, I hope that you have enjoyed this conversation today. Thanks for having just a little bit of coffee with me and hanging out, maybe during your lunch break or on your drive home. We are for you here at Gospel Mobilization. Our biggest desire is to help you send more missionaries around the world. So thanks so much. I hope and pray this was useful for you and your organization. This is our first video episode, hopefully of many, many more to come. So drop us a comment and let us know what you think. Or if you have any topics that you think, Dave, can you please talk about such and such? Or do you have any resources on fill in the blank? Of course, we don't know everything. We don't have all the resources. There's lots of other great organizations out there too that are helping send more missionaries around the world. But perhaps we can help network or put you in touch, or maybe we do have a resource that we can help you with. So, and please email me if you're interested in maybe setting up a discovery call about gospel mobilization consulting to see if one-on-one consulting would be helpful for you or your organization, your sending agency. Dave J at gospelmobilization.org is where you can get in touch with me. I'd love to work together to help you send more missionaries around the world. And until next time, let's keep praying for more laborers to work in his harvest fields.